Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, All Things Life and Fitness, and right now we're right in the middle of our law enforcement series. Today we're going over everything you need to know about the application process. Let me tell you, they don't just hire anyone.
Yeah, they don't, but they hired me, so there's that. Stick around to the end so that I can give you my 3 most important takeaways for if you're going through the process.
All right, step 1, the application. Tell us about that.
So the first thing you're going to do is go to the website for the department that you want to work for and see what requirements they have for filling out the application process. It might just be filling out an online app. It might be taking it in, but whatever they have there, do it exactly like they say. They'll probably ask for a T-score, which is basically similar to like SAT type exam that gives you a number. They'll probably ask you to attach that. And if you can, also attach a resume and your cover letter. The cover letter, I think, can be a good icebreaker. Like I talked about college football and I played with the Buffalo Bills. So when I turned that in with the, when I got to the oral board, they read through that and it was a nice little icebreaker. Like, wait, you played with the Bills? So that was cool.
After you apply, next step is the oral boards.
Yeah, the oral board.
Nerve-wracking?
Yeah, definitely. So that's the first nerve-wracking part. Just like any other job interview, you go into, well, I don't know what the rest of them are like, but you go into a room, there's a panel of 3 people, usually some HR person that's like making sure everything's kosher and everyone's treated the same. And the panel asks you questions predetermined. They write down your answers and they basically give you a score.
What are some of the questions they ask you?
So they kind of split into 2. In the first half, the questions were general interview questions. You know, what are your strengths and weaknesses? What's something difficult in your life and how did you overcome it? And the second half would be scenario questions. So one of those that I remember was, because this was 4 or 5 years ago when I applied, I think 5 now. The question was, you have to arrest a female who's being combative. What do you do? And I said something along the lines of, I'd use the force necessary to get her into handcuffs and detain her. Unless it was Ronda Rousey, then I would ask for, I'd get my taser out, ask for extra help, call the SWAT team, and they all started laughing. And so kind of, feeling the room and like any other interview, if you can get a chuckle or just show your personality, that's what you do. So one of the biggest tips for that oral board is make sure that you've gone on a ride along with that department before you go through that oral board interview so that you know a little bit about the department. I did 2 of them and both of them asked me that specifically. Did you go on a ride along? And you have to be able to answer that.
Do you need to know city specific questions?
Yeah, I definitely. There might, and that's, loaded question. Do you know what about the city? Size, what's the population like as far as, is it a bedroom community? Do most people stay home? And then also, do you know the qualities of the department or information about the department? Basically, they want to know, have you done your homework? Do you really want to work here? Or are you just applying to a ton of places? But if you really want to work there, you'll know something about that department.
Good info. Okay, oral board interviews are over. Then you move into background investigations. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so you get a call from probably the sergeant. Hey, congratulations, moving forward. Check out for an email. It's got a personal history statement attached. I need you to fill that out. And that PHS was, I think mine was like 26 pages. It's everything about you, everywhere you've worked, all the roommates you've ever had, all the addresses you've lived at. Have you gotten any tickets, all the cars, actually, they even ask for like insurance information. They want to know about your finances. They have 26 pages of information about you. You take that and you'll give it to a background investigator who sits down with you, has a little, conversation, and then you get ghosted for like 4 to 6 weeks while they're basically investigating you.
Yeah, so during that time, they might be contacting your previous employers, roommates.
Did they talk to you?
That. They did. Yeah, they came to our house. He called me. He talked to our kids. He talked to all of our neighbors. He did pretty extensive research. Okay, so during that time when you might not be hearing from your background investigator, should you call them?
No, they're not going to forget about you. The department is paying that person to investigate you. So they're going to call you one way or another and say, hey, sorry, we're not moving forward. Or, hey, congratulations, you've cleared backgrounds. Here's the next step.
So I would imagine that you would probably hear earlier on or fairly quickly if you're not going to move forward in the process. So maybe no news is good news.
Yeah.
So be patient.
I think mine was like 6 weeks of nothing. So
yeah. I have a good question.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you can do that can automatically disqualify you from this process?
Yeah, definitely. And I don't know what they all are. And if you do get disqualified, they don't tell you. So I'm not sure all the ins and outs. But I do know that, like, if you've ever committed a felony, no chance. If you've ever used certain drugs, there's no chance. But there are certain things. Like, I know one, like, if you've, been convicted of shoplifting or something, there might not be no chance. But there's other stuff, like, for example, you've gotten a DUI. You might still be able to get a job as a police officer. There just has to be a lot of time in between when it happened and when you're applying. And then during that time, a good history of now good decision making.
All right, congratulations. You passed backgrounds. Next up is your psych evaluation and your polygraph test.
Yeah, so the psych and poly are two totally separate things. They just might be in one or the other order, or at the same time, but during the same week, whatever. For the polygraph, you meet with a polygrapher.
A polygraph technician,
yeah,
I would imagine.
A polygraph technician, I don't know what they're called. And they give you a packet to fill out again that's like another 300, 400 questions of, have you ever used this drug? Have you ever used this drug? Have you ever used this? Have you ever done this? Have you ever hit your wife? Have you ever, cheated? Have you ever had an alcoholic drink and driven? All of these questions, you answer them. You go over that whole packet with them, and then they hook you up to the machine and ask you basically yes, no questions. They're not trying to trick you, but it's still so nerve wracking. And like you feel your heart like, ah. So you sit there with your feet on pads, hand on pads, you're sitting on a pad, and they ask you a question like, besides what we talked about, have you used any illegal narcotics? And you're like, no. Bethany, Jack, Henry, Charlie. Bethany, Jack, Henry, Charlie. So I remember one of my buddies telling me that he did it, and every time he did it, he'd start quoting a verse. He's like, for God so loved the world that he gave his only God. It's just something to like get your mind off the question, which is so weird because you're not lying, but I don't know, it's just so nerve wracking.
Not let your brain wander.
Yeah.
Or twitch or.
Yeah.
All right, so let's talk about the psych evaluation.
Yeah, so you meet with a psychologist, since I know that word. And they give you a bunch of personality tests, is what I took them away as, that you answer. It's like 1,200 questions from strongly disagree to strongly agree of like, I like dolphins, or I wish I was a photographer, or race cars are cool. And like you answer those, and then they come back. Like, what's that one you always ask me?
The Enneagram.
Yeah, so there's like a bunch of those. So you answer all those questions, you give them to her or him, and then the psychologist comes back and has an interview with you based on how you answered those questions. So during that interview, the biggest thing is they're trying to get under your skin and see how you react. So they might ask very specific questions about a really bad breakup, or about the lost loved one, or about a bad relationship with your mother or father. They might dig and pry and be like, yeah, I don't think because of that you probably can't do this job. And then they want to see how you react to that, because there's a lot of that on the job of how you react to things and how mentally you handle and are able to compartmentalize and keep moving forward. So just be ready for that if you're going to go into a psych exam.
See how you react under pressure and under stress.
Yeah, I'm not crazy.
Okay, so once you pass those, then you move on to the last and final steps, which might be different in order per each department, but it's typically the captain or chief interview. Yeah,
so it's kind of the last, it's an upper part of the department. We call it the brass. Somebody from there doing an interview with you, kind of the last chance for them to get a look. Do we really want to, hire this person? Are they a good fit for us? And a little bit, it's still formal, like I wear a suit and you're still talking to possibly a chief or a captain, but it wasn't all predetermined questions. It's more of a conversation, and you can definitely get X'd there, but that's way late in the process.
Yeah, you'd have to do something big to get through all of that, and then the captain to be like,
no. One other thing you're going to have to do is a physical exam. That's not like physical fitness, but actually they send you to a doctor and you do a full physical.
General health, wellness. Yeah. Make sure your heart is healthy, all of that.
Yep.
All right, so as we wrap up, give us your 3 final tips on how to make this the smoothest process possible.
Yeah, so the first one is simple and needs no explanation. Be extremely honest and upfront on all the boxes that you check and all the lines that you fill out. Don't try to skip past or hide something and then come back later and be like, oh, I forgot about that, because They know all the tricks. They've seen it before. So just be open and honest. Number 2 is stay positive through the whole process, because it takes, like, from when I applied to when I got hired was 4 months. And there was that 6-week break where I didn't hear anything from anyone because the background investigator was doing his work. So just stay positive. I also got denied from the first agency I applied to before I got hired by the second one. And they said it was because of my background, but I took the same background information, gave it to the other department, and they're like, dude, this is as clean as could be. I don't know what the deal is. So just stay positive. There's a whole list of factors that it could be that's probably out of your control.
And the third and final.
The third and final thing, by far, I think the most important, is everything is an interview. Everybody has the power to basically make your application process an extremely uphill battle if you do something wrong. So when you turn in your application to whatever receptionist or secretary, that's a little mini interview, because you could show up in basketball shorts and a torn t-shirt and be talking trash on your phone, and she might call the sergeant and be like, dude, this guy's a fool. And then you might not get hired just from that. At our department, we do a physical assessment, and you're assigned a patrol officer to walk you from station to station, but that patrol officer is interviewing you without telling you. So they're asking you questions, and your answers are basically going down written on a card afterwards, and they'll go to the sergeant and say, yeah, this guy's cool, or they're like, this guy will not work here. He will not fit. He's full of himself, or like, and they can give you that X basically right off the bat. So every person you talk to, everyone you pass in the parking lot, every person you meet is an interview.
Good advice. All right, you guys, make sure you're subscribed below so you don't miss any of our videos. And if you have any law enforcement questions, put them in the comments below, and we will be sure to compile them and do a Q&A video at the end of this series.
Yeah, and if you're going through the process right now and you want to DM me about specific questions, feel free to on Instagram, be.fit.davis, not be fit, because, yeah. Bye.